So hi everyone, hope you're all doing great. Good morning, this is Tulsi Krishna. I'm a UI and a UX designing expert, web developer and an entrepreneur. I am running a business which deals with UI and UX designing based out of Hyderabad. I have been working on many kinds of web projects for more than 6 years, and I'm happy that I could share some of my knowledge with you today. I have to thank you for spending some time here on your precious Sunday. I know it's very important, the Sunday time. So coming to the agenda of today's webinar is to learn and gain awareness on fundamentals of user interface and user experience design. So hi there, I can see someone has joined now. So let's get back into the topic. Let's continue this. So I hope you already have some knowledge on how web or mobile applications work. Maybe you could be a developer, or you could be a freelancer who is thinking of starting a career in UI or UX, or you could be trying for a job in UI or UX designing. So for many users, for many people, the first thing and the first confusion they have in their mind is why there are two different words for the same design. I mean, the UI and UX, how they are different. So do you know, or do you understand the difference between UI and UX? Sometimes many feel that they are just a confusing combination of letters, and I even heard from people telling that there is not much difference between UI and UX. Well, the truth is both are different. So what is exactly the UI? To understand the difference, we have to see what exactly the UI is. User interface, as we call it, means everything that is designed into an information device with which humans may interact. Means here information device means it can be a desktop machine or a Mac or a PC or a mobile which we communicate with mobile applications, like any device that can be interacted with humans. Basically it needs an interface, and designing that interface is UI design. So this may include a mobile application, a web application, a display screen, appearance of desktop, and many things. Many things come into this picture. So basically, a UI designer will deal with something like how a web page layout look like, how the page is working, how the page is responding to users, the alignment of elements, the button placements, navigation, color combinations, interface testing, and etc. There are so many things to learn in UI designing actually. On the other hand, now let us come to the other part of the designing, the UX designing. The UX designing is making the experience of using a website or an application enjoyable to the user. Here, the main goal of user experience designing is to make user happy basically. He should feel fulfilled. He or she, I mean to say, he or she should feel fulfilled and enjoyed the experience of using the application or website, whether it can be a website or mobile application. Now, let us see an example of a restaurant to understand better. Hi there. Some more people have joined. So let me continue with the example I was discussing. Let us see an example to understand what is the difference between UI and UX, and let us dig deeper into this. So let us take an example of restaurant here so that we can easily understand the concept. So let us understand in this example how the user happiness is affected. When you sit in a restaurant, I mean your beloved restaurant, like whichever the restaurant you like, you can take that as an example. When you sit in that restaurant and enjoying the meal that you have ordered, user interface of a meal would be how the food is presented, how are things aligned across the plate served to you, does it look pretty and appetizing, and of course its interactivity, how we are able to deal with the food using a spoon or fork. So in our case, what matters most is how easy it is to put it on a plate while serving ourselves and eat it. So that experience, that explains the user interface of a meal here in this example, whereas the user experience of the same meal includes many other factors. For example, what our friends think about the restaurant, how easily you could find the restaurant, the choice of the menu, the atmosphere of the place, how the meal is presented, and its interactivity. its smell, its taste, how nutritious the food is, and everything, including how much you're enjoying your company. I mean, whenever you go with along with someone else. So as you can see, the two concepts here, the user interface and user experience, overlap to an extent, and in the fact they float off each other. However, if you think of a job of a UX designer or UI designer, they're quite different in the ultimate focus on the job. I mean, the focus is completely different between these two people, actually. They can work side by side together, but the focus may be different because we'll understand why the focus is different. UI designers are majorly focused on making a website or a mobile application look and work great. These are the two words you have to remember about UI designers. So basically, how everything aligned on different pages, how is the typography in the sense the titles, H1, H2, H3 tags, how the text is placed in the page, how the layout is aligned, is the button working, or is the navigation working fine, are users comfortable with the existing navigation, any changes are required. So this comes under UI designing work. While on the other hand, UX designers are majorly concerned about overall vision or the end result of the application or website. Like how the user feels by using the product. Is he happy, or is he feeling the application or website is buggy, full of bugs, or is on an overall, like on a higher level, like is he or she enjoying the product experience? We have to notice, the user experience designer should keep on noticing whether the user is facing any bad experiences at any page, or any bounce rate is increasing on any page. Bounce rate here means the user may be getting away from the page. Some element or some color may be putting off the user experience there, so they may feel uncomfortable on the page and get away from the page by closing the browser. So basically, the UX designer designs a path. So here is the actual point where we can understand what actually the UX and UI designers does. Here, the UX designer designs a path for a user to follow, because the designer thinks that the designed path is the most pleasurable and happiest path for the user, where the user can really feel happy about using the website or application. So this is the perfect explanation of a UX designer that you can consider. And then UI designer actually creates pages or screens that follow the path of UX designer has chosen for the user. In the previous one, we have seen the path designed by the UX designer. So the UI designer usually follows the path designed by UX designer, so that both the guys, or both the resources who are working on some project, if they're working together, they should be on the same page. I mean, they should be on the same page. They should have the same understanding on what is required for the application and what kind of interface is required, what kind of user flow is required for the application. So these two roles have very different end focus. That's what we have discussed earlier too. A lot of companies would actually combine these into a single role, calling them as a single UI and UX designer. And some companies prefer to have individual designers for both these segments. However, there are lots of people who specialize in one or the other. So I think you have understood the difference between UI and UX majorly, and the definitions, of course. And let us see how you can actually become a UX or UX designer. So to start anything, you have to learn what things to be used in this designing, like majorly the tools. Now let us discuss about the tools that we need to get started as UI designer first. For everyone who is starting a career in UI designing, I would recommend them to start using Adobe Photoshop, as it is the easiest tool that you can learn, and it's provided with a license from Adobe, where you can have to pay, and use, or you can also use a 30-day trial version provided by Adobe. So that is the most used tool based on my experience. I have seen it. So even these days, I still use it actually. You know, from my initial days, I continued using that, though there are many other tools available in the market. The next tool I recommend is the Adobe Illustrator. This is very similar and simple, and very much similar to the Photoshop, but a lot of designers use Illustrator for logo designing and other graphic designing purposes. I recommend this too. when a user designing is going to the next level, something like an SVG creation or some graphic creation into the web page, Adobe Illustrator will be very much handy for them. Illustrator also comes with a license to be purchased for usage. So it totally depends on your convenience to choose which one to use. The other tool from the same Adobe which can be used for the design is the Adobe Muse. Frankly, I haven't used this much tool, but what I know is that this also can be used for web design purposes. I mean, people can design layouts in this tool. There is another interesting tool called as Sketch. I'm sorry, I forgot to change the there is another interesting tool called as Sketch, which can be used only in iOS platform or Mac. And the last one I would suggest is the Balsamic. It is pretty simple and easy to learn. Once you gain some experience in Adobe Photoshop or Illustrator, what I would suggest is that you turn towards Balsamic. In Balsamic, you can structure the old layout or any existing layout or new layout of interface, and you can convert that sketch into an Adobe Photoshop design and come to the normal pattern of old UI design process. Coming back to the UX designer part, we have seen what tools are required and skills are required for a UI designer. So UX designing part is much of skills part. So we know that UX designer is one that communicates with the user problem. Actually, UX designer is one who identifies what problem is there in the web application experience or mobile application experience, identifies the user problem, and he has to solve the problem or predict some changes in the design so that the problem can be solved. So for becoming a UX designer, you have to acquire certain skills where you should be able to communicate with the user problems in the sense where you should be able to answer why users are facing some problem. For example, users are not able to navigate to some other page, or users are bouncing back from some page. So you should be able to find out what reason is causing to the failure of the user experience. So, and the next one is you should be able to, as a UX designer, you should be able to track user behavior. There are good tools in the market such as Google Analytics, and many other tools came up in recent days actually. Google Analytics is one old tool I have been using from very past days. So you can track the user behavior, like how the user flow in the website, on from which page to which page or which screen to which screen the users are flowing, where the users are dropping off. You can actually track everything. So this is very important. For a UX designer, it is very important to study the user behavior. And based on these inputs that he is getting from the tools, he or she should be able to come up with a solution when there is a chance of higher bounce rate, higher user bounce rate. If users are getting dropped off from certain page, there is some negative point that is putting off the users from the page. So the designer should be able to find it out and propose a solution for that, and if possible, fix it. Also, you should be a problem observer. In the same scenario, continuing this, you should be a problem observer. You should be able to predict the problems. Like having these skills, you can come up with any possible solution for any kind of UX problems that your client is having. Clients pay a lot for UX designers these days because for them, customer happiness and business are the only important things. In case you do not like to become a web developer or do any technical stuff along with UI designing, you can there are chances in the market in our industry, like you can also opt for a career in only UI designing, as it is pretty much simple. You have to track the user behavior and provide a solution that is good for the client's business clients, or if you're doing your own application, or if you're a business person who is trying to build a product, this matters for you too. There are also some other techniques and processes like analyzing a heat map. Crazy Egg is one website one application where they provide a good kind of heat maps. It's a paid version, of course, but it's a good one to analyze the user behavior. And heat map basically is the range or the graph. I can say it is a graph which shows the clicks generated by the user generated clicks. So we can, after noticing a heat map, basically what we can understand is where the users are clicking on the page, which buttons are being clicked most, which regions are being noticed most by the users, and all these things can be found out in heat map. And following, there is something called as F pattern. There is something called as F pattern, and F pattern means a user, whenever a user comes onto the page, the vision starts with in a pattern of F. Mostly, this happens mostly. This is an old rule, but it's still valid, I guess. So, and A to B testing is one aspect where UX designer has to be aware of. A to B testing means when you're testing landing pages, you should be ready with at least 3 or 4 types of landing pages for any product or website or application. So what happens is if something is putting off the user on landing page 1, you can immediately change that to landing page 2. Or the same case can happen with some kind of header in a page. You might have designed 3 or 4 types of headers, which consists of logo and menu and some other things, elements. So you can test the headers using the A/B testing techniques. There are many tools available in the market which will provide A/B testing, and these can yield good results on user behavior. Now let us take an example and understand this concept in much simpler way. Let's suppose your website has somewhere around 10 products now, and after 6 or 7 months, you may have to upgrade the site to 10,000 products. So you should be able to observe the different kinds of problems that you would be facing in future. You should be able to predict and fix the problems where the user may get stuck or or may face a bad experience. I mean, like user experience designer should be able to predict everything based on user flow, based on the user behavior. He should be able to predict everything. What happens to the website, what happens to the page look and feel when the content keeps on increasing. For example, in an e-commerce site, the products may keep on increasing. What happens to the user experience if too many products are on the page? Similarly, for a blog, what happens if too many blogs are visible or too many blog posts are visible on a single category or a home page? Is the user comfortable with that or not? So these are the kinds that user UX designer has to keep in mind. So having seen everything about the skills and tools required for UI and UX designers, where they can actually start, that you have to understand. Like you have seen what to learn. Now where we have to start actually. So while learning anything, you should pretty much know at least where to start. So for you to start learning UI designing, you have to learn how to perform basic things on your tool of choice. Tool of choice in the sense, I have suggested few tools. You may have options for some other tools also. You can research on the internet and find out which good tools are you comfortable with. So it could be anything. So the tool of your choice. Things like drawing shapes such as circles, triangles, rectangles, etc. This may sound pretty simple, but it is a foundation stone for becoming good UI designer. It starts with the drawing shapes in any kind of tool. So that is very much required. You will understand why drawing shapes is required in a later slide. The next thing that is very important in UI design is to learn how to edit images. You should be well equipped with the skill of editing the images, like adding effects, doing some blur on the image whenever required, adding an opacity or a layer to the image, or everything you should be able to do it. And this comes by practice actually, and it's not a one-day job, but this comes by practice. So far this, open a simple image in your design tool and try to mask the image or apply different effects and see how it looks like. We now have a look into the color gradients, and this is where you can have a chance to create great color combinations. To be frank, the color combinations or gradients are very much important. As I have to tell you that my experience, like as I had few bad experiences, I have to say, in my career in some projects where the clients used to reject very much good layouts, but just because of the bad color combination, they used to get rejected just because of the bad color combination. Other than the color combinations, the layouts used to be good, but they can't appreciate. I mean, anyone, as just not just the client, anyone would not be able to appreciate if the color combination is really bad. So what I suggest personally is that when you take up a task of adding colors, always try to be in a good and joyful mood. Really, you have to be in a good and joyful mode. I suggest that. I noticed this based on my experience. That's why I'm sharing this to you. We tend to make good choices when we are in a good mood, and so the color combinations. and hence they may reflect your mood and attitude actually. So be careful when you choose the colors for your UI. The next aspect I would like to tell is about working on layers and structures in tools like Photoshop. A layer is mostly a simulation of element in UI that could be converted into a physical element in final web page. Something the final web page instance, something that could be coded into HTML, CSS, or JS. Nowadays, there are many other technologies where the final elements can be coded. A structure is more like a project or a layout. When you are designing or your web page, you should structure it basically. And there's a common term. There is a common term used for this called as wireframing. A lot of designers are actually using those tools for wireframing first rather than designing the web page directly. I'll show you an example where I have designed one page some time back. So I'm for some purpose the client haven't agreed for this layout. So I thought I could share you this. This is the PSD copy of the layout that I have designed. So these are the layers. Sorry. The side you can see all the layers that I have placed on the screen here. The entire thing is called a structure or a page layout, and the side items that you're able to see like folder, symbol, copy, all these things are layers. I'm able to, these things comes on practice actually. Now, on the first day itself, you may not be able to do everything so perfectly. So these things comes on practice. So keep on practicing in the tool of your likeness, keep on doing different kinds of layouts, keep on, keep on failing actually. Once you fail, you'll learn something. So keep on coming out with bugs so that your layout improves day by day. So while I was talking about, since I was talking about wireframe, any design, I suggest that you start with wireframing first. Use a Photoshop or use even a Windows Paint application, anything of your choice. Form a wireframe. Wireframe in the sense, just the single color lines that you are seeing right now. If you see on the left side, that was formed in the Paint mostly, right? So basically, when you explain the concept to the client, you can first, in the first meeting, you can just provide the wireframe to the client and explain to him or her what concept will be available on what place, above the fold what will be the content, below the fold what will be the content, what headings will be there, what links we will be providing on the page, everything. You can actually use this as a tool to deliver your concept to the client. On the right side, what you're seeing is a more scratch kind of thing, like most of the people use just a paper and a pencil and an eraser, just keep on drawing before the client until the client and the designer comes on the same page at one point. So until they arrive at a design both the parties agree on, they keep on designing and using new papers and rubbing whatever was already done. So this continues actually. I like the right concept actually, right side concept. Even nowadays I use this concept with some of my clients. Whenever there is a chance to sit before the client, the right side option is the best. Whenever there is a chance to communicate the concept in online, in a webinar or a meeting, the left side concept is the best one. So there are a lot of designers who use these tools for wireframing. So these layers basically signifies, I am coming back to the previous slide. So I want to add one more point to the layers. These layers basically signify the distribution and placement of elements on a web page. At certain point, I would suggest that you start duplicating any existing websites. Take an example of Facebook, Twitter, or something else, website or application UI. As a practice, start duplicating it. By duplicating it, the same layout what is available before you, you will understand while practicing like this, you will get to notice all the tricks that big players in the market are using to create great layouts and great designers. You will understand the work of great designers actually. Once you are good at creating structures using design tools, you are ready to go to the next level stuff like creating layouts in HTML, CSS, and JS, and you can use the new technologies like AngularJS, React, and everything. So that is pretty much about UI and UX wireframes, and this wireframe is also called as prototyping in some cases. Most of the people call it as prototyping. Prototype is the initial version of anything, I mean product. So these kind of layouts can be called as the initial version of any product or web application, mobile application. So next is that I think we have already seen that what skills are required for a UX designer. You should be able to communicate, he or she should be able to communicate with the user problems, track user behavior, come up, the one should be able to come up with a solution, and the best quality to be a UX designer is a problem observer, and he or she should be able to predict the problems that would come up in future because of heavy traffic or heavy content on a page. So here comes an interesting topic called as design thinking. This is very much important actually. This is a vast topic. I can't cover this in just 30 minutes. So I'll brief this in a few points actually. Actually, what is design thinking? I'm not sure if you're already aware of this and how it works and how to start implementing design thinking. You know, what's interesting about design thinking is you can actually implement design thinking in your own life, activities like daily activities also. Once you start thinking deep, using the design, you can solve any problem. So let us dig deep into the topic. Actually, design thinking can be defined as methodology for creative and practical wicked problems. Basically, you are solving here in this concept, you are solving any problem, taking up any problem and solving with creativity. That's the simplest definition for this. So what is important? Why is this important here? Because users may face many problems when it comes to facing web applications using mobile applications. They may have many problems, like as a user experience designer and UI designer, you should be able to think from a design perspective. What is important here is that we try to solve a problem. For example, a problem where users are stuck or facing bad experience can be solved by applying some creativity by UI or UX designer. The solution should be creative. That is the point here, and should be able to implement solution practically. You please notice the point here. It should be creative and as well as implementing. As well as it should be able to implement solution practically. Otherwise, there is no meaning for designing thinking. Getting into more details of design thinking, this methodology consists of 5 steps to solve any problem with creativity. So basically, this design thinking encourages people to explore new alternatives, creating more options for solving a problem. Mostly things will be focused on user, what user needs, what is required, what pain points user is having. Everything is surrounded around the user here. These are the 5 steps to implement design thinking in your UI or UX. So let us go step by step quickly. First one is empathy. Why empathy is so important, and I mean, what do we actually do here? Firstly, we need to understand and analyze on what our targeted users really want. Targeted users means our customers for a business. As a designer, you always have to know your customer or application user to generate efficient results through your UI and UX. Most of the businesses think that they know everything about the clients, I mean their customers, but actually they may not know this. Process of knowing your target audience or knowing your customers' problems is called empathy. Your design may fail when you ignore the empathy step and provide just a generic layout. You shouldn't be providing a generic layout at all the time. So you should be actually incorporating the solution for a user problem here. So that is where the job gets tough for UI or UX designer. Second step is the define. In the design thinking is to define the requirements. Here, the designer should be able to define the requirements and pain points from the data collected about your target user group. In the previous step, we should be able to learn about the target user group. From the data what we acquired in that step, we should be able to define a certain goal here. This way you can attain the perfect goal of your design. You will also understand what your design should speak to the user, because there is a language. UI and UX design provides a language to the user. Any application, from my experience, what I can say is any application, it can be a web or a mobile one, it should speak the customer's language. It should never speak an engineer's or software developer's language. It should never speak a technical language. It should never speak a server language. I have seen many applications where the bugs are almost like the server errors. Only the technical guy or the developer can understand, and the users are freaked out always by seeing these errors because they don't know what it means basically. Instead of that, the designer has the responsibility to provide the same customer's language in the design. So next, the third step is, since so far we have we know what problem we need to solve and what pain point we have to answer for our targeted users. Now we need to search for a perfect solution for that. It is commonly said that we need to have 50 to 60 ideas for one problem to find out which solution can go further for actual implementation. In our case, the best design can be chosen for a number of chosen from the number of wireframes created during brainstorming. The brainstorm, you could be coming up with a number of layouts. So finally, after all the discussions and brainstorming with the client, the best design can come out, which will solve all the user problems there. So, and the next one is the physical form, creating a physical form for it called as uh, prototype. And this stage design will be creating the actual screens that are to be implemented, and the most important, the final step is to test the prototype or a final or the final design and see if the targeted user's pain point were really answered and problems were really perfectly solved. Design thinking is very vast subject actually. So here what I can suggest is that you have to think like a child while you're thinking into design. Here is a simple question for you. Have you ever met a 5-year-old child who cannot sing, cannot dance, and cannot play like nobody else on the planet could do? Actually, that's how we all begin our lives, of course. And it is very important for a designer to be in a state of child to come up with some creative solutions, right? So that is about design thinking. And the last one I would like to cover for this session is about building your own portfolio. For any freelancer or any UI or UX design looking for a job change or a new opportunity, it's very important to build a portfolio for them. First, your portfolio should have to focus on creating a neat and meaningful structure to showcase your work. Most designers maintain a web link to picture their portfolio, and these web links have a domain with their name or identity. Most of the time, the designers choose .me domains for their purpose. Your portfolio should feature some of your best works from best clients. You should not be picturing all the jobs or all the tasks you have executed. It's not necessary actually. You have to picture only the greatest tasks or achievements you have done. It should feature the best quality basically. Once you build your portfolio, you want to get the traffic. So for that purpose, you have to depend on 3 mediums here. I can suggest 3 mediums. Create a blog and write some design articles in that. Share with some other designers, so that other designers also share with other designers through platforms such as social media platforms. Could be Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram, or anything. So like this, what happens is your blog will be promoted among all the designers, and who knows, among those people, your clients could be there, your potential clients could be there. Your blog may entertain existing clients or potential clients, and potential clients also understand about your skill. You have to promote your posts through social media by yourself, and there are some creative networks like Behance where you can actually promote yourself with your skills. You can place some wireframes or layouts, sample layouts that you have created in a Behance, and to get some popularity. That is where startups are mostly hunting for talent. So since the time is running out actually, hope you have got some insight on the fundamentals of UI and user experience. Good question. What kind of blog? There is a user asking, what kind of blog can I make? It can be any. I mean, like since we are talking about UI and UI and UX topic here, you should be able to write some articles related to your own topic, your own subjects, like create how you're arriving at some logic for some user for some experience. This is just an example I'm just giving. For example, you were asked to build a website for a children's website, a children's e-commerce website where the parents may come and buy, or middle-aged kids may come and buy with the guidance of their parents on the site. That site should be totally different, and it should speak the kids' language basically. It's an experience basically. As a UX or UI designer, it's your experience in building a kid's website, how you have arrived at such design. I'm just giving an example. This could be a topic for your blog. So you can share your stories, share your experiences, share some troubleshooting experiences where you had to troubleshoot some error in the website. It can be anything. It can be anything actually. So what we have discussed now here is just a tip of an iceberg. I can say that because there is always a lot to learn in this designing. It's a vast subject. It's like an ocean, and moreover, the design trends keep changing from time to time. Earlier, when I started designing, people used to uh, make websites based on images. Actually, most of the times images were there. It used to take a lifetime to load a page actually because of the lot of images, and Flash was like used anything in those days. And later when Chrome and Google, I mean, so Google started stopped supporting autoplaying of Flash, that got reduced. But later, after the Twitter's legacy, the Bootstrap has come out for the responsive mobile designs. When people realized that they could access content through mobiles, everything, the face of the internet has changed actually. UI and UX design started building applications, more mobile oriented applications, and applications are moving towards customer centric manner. Moreover, entire industry is moving towards customer centric applications. That is why it's very much important to have some awareness on UI and UX these days. So there is a lot of subject to learn here. So to give you an awareness on what you could learn, I have delivered this webinar. And coming in this next week, we have an extensive and exclusive training on the same subject, which is a paid one. I can share you the link after this, where you can actually see what details are covered in that. And here I'm providing a curriculum for you. And this is the curriculum you can learn in that training. What is anatomy of great design? What's the difference between a design and web design and UI UX? Many people ask this actually. How titles can be worked, how we can track I mean vision of the user, what are the elements, how we can use them in different ways, what patterns are famous these days, modern day designs. These days, Google Material Design is taking the internet like anything. Since when it was launched, it was not considered as an important one by most of the designers because Bootstrap was prevailing then. And then later, when Google started recommending and promoting it for the apps, mobile apps in the Android store, material design has gained more importance in that. So these are the topics that we would cover in the next coming session, which is a paid one. You can see the topics here. These are very much extensive topics to learn. Once you learn all these topics, you should be able to understand any problem you see on any site. Like you'll be gaining some capability to start a career as a freelancer or a new job, either support your client or support your own product. I can also provide a mini project at the end of the session. It's 6 hours a session actually. Every Sunday it can go for a couple of hours. It may start at 11 a.m. at the same time that we started today. It may go for 1 hour. So this is it. Thank you for joining.